he is now not only the Dean of the Congressional Black Caucus, he is the Dean of the Congress of these United States of America. And since 1989, he has consistently introduced H.R. 40, the Reparations Study Bill. Now, it's been up and down and whatever, but the fact of the matter is, he is the one who did it. He is the one who had the courage to do it. He has been the one who's been willing to put it forth year after year after year after year. So I think we all have a big round of applause for that as well. We have a very powerful session today, and I want to sort of share with you how we envision the session unfolding. First of all, we're here to really not just discuss reparations. Well, we're here to talk about the progress that we have made on this issue since last year. Last year, we had a major session in which the Foreign Minister for St. Vincent and the Grenadines was here, as well as Sir Hilary Beckles, who has returned. We also had Ta-Nehisi Coates and a very distinguished panel that included some of the persons who are on the stage today. In many respects, that was kind of a turning point in terms of the brain trust. From being simply a conversation that's very important and very lively to one in which specific kinds of work is being outlined and being undertaken. And so last year we noted that we were looking forward to a convening of a national, international symposium on reparations. And that symposium was in fact held in New York in April. We had representatives come from some 22 countries from around the world. The CARICOM Reparations Commission was represented, as well as either existing or emerging commissions in Europe. It was a very, very, very powerful convening. Just prior to that, and we had indicated this last year, we actually had the formation of the National African American Reparations Commission. Because as many of you well know, that one of the driving forces for the resurgence and the strength and new vitality of the reparations movement has been the courageous decision on the part of the nations of the Caribbean, unanimously, to vote to demand of the former European colonialists reparations for native genocide and African enslavement. And their formation of a CARICOM Reparations Commission, which is in place, which is active. And this is at the level of heads of state. This is at the level of nations that made that decision. A very, therefore, encouraging development. They also prepared a 10-point program for reparatory justice and are strategizing to use legal strategies, and educational strategies, and advocacy work as a way of moving that agenda forward. Well, we have formed here in the United States a National African American Reparations Commission, which will be introduced to you in just a moment. And we have also today prepared to announce and to put before you, and some of you already have it in your hands, a preliminary 10-point reparations program. In other words, we're not just talking about this. This is moving forward. Today we're also prepared to talk about not only H.R. 40 as it has been, but to make recommendations to our esteemed Congressman about ways in which we think it might be enhanced. So we're talking about the development of H.R. 40B, which obviously calls for a conversation between the Congressman and the National African American Reparations Commission to talk about how it might be reformulated and put forth into the future. So the point is that we've had work that has been done and work that continues to be done. So today, here's how we hope to proceed. First of all, we have with us a distinguished scholar from Cornell University, Dr. Edward Baptist, who put out a book, who's the author of a book called The Half Ain't Never Been Told. It's a book about capitalism and slavery. And he will also share with us his notion about the literature in the last, perhaps, decade. There's a lot of books now being written about the nature of capitalism and slavery. And what that does is really put a focus on the fact that, in fact, you know, slavery was the linchpin, the vital basis for the commercial and industrial revolution in this country. So we'll begin with him. And then we will have the members of the National African American Reparations Commission introduce themselves. I'm not going to introduce them. I'm going to ask them each to at least say a word about themselves, as those who are present. And by the way, on the back of the document that you have, you'll see a listing of all of them, actually, but I'll have them at least all introduce themselves. And then the task that we will take up is that we issued a letter earlier this year asking that President Obama create a John Hope Franklin Commission on Reparatory Justice. And so we're going to ask two of our commissioners, Commissioner Joanne Watson and Commissioner Ray Winbush, to talk about the rationale for that and the status of that particular initiative. So we're going to put that out. And then the next discussion will be on the rationale and recommendations around HR 40B. In other words, what's the background, what's the rationale, what are some of the provisions that we're talking about in terms of making changes. Then, of course, we have one of our most brilliant legal minds with us today, who's also part of our commission, Professor Charles Ogletree, who was a part of the legal team that pushed forward so many cases around reparations. And, you know, some succeeded, some, well, not really totally succeeded, but at least it advanced the struggle. So we want him to talk and comment about where we are in relationship to our legal strategies. And then I am going to take a minute to just briefly synopsize the document that you have in your hands. That is the preliminary reparations program, and talk about how we intend to utilize that. And after that, we will break for questions and answers from the audience briefly. And once we have had that question and answer period, our next major block of discussion will be bringing on our special guest, Professor Hillary Beckles, who is the chairman of the CARICOM Reparations Commission, to give us a sense of what has happened since last year in relationship to that, but also in his own way to bring remarks about the nature of the struggle for reparations as we move forward. So that's, brothers and sisters, how we hope to proceed with this afternoon session, which we know is going to be productive and useful because we're dealing with very specific and concrete pieces of work. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Edward Baptiste, who focuses on history in the 19th century United States, and in particular, the history of the enslavement of African Americans in the South. The expansion of slavery in the United States between the writing of the Constitution in 1787 and the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861 had an enormous consequence for all Americans. So indeed, the expansion shaped many elements of the modern world that we now live in, both inside and outside the borders of the United States. So he's going to comment on that, but he teaches a variety of courses. The first half of the American Survey classes in slavery in the South and the Civil War. He teaches on U.S. political history, modernity and modernization, masculinity, and the 19th century U.S. history in general. Would you please welcome Dr. Edward Baptiste.